Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Sacramento, our Capitol Bureau. We're joined by Connie Leyva. She is a member of the California State Senate. And ma'am, I recently had the good fortune to interview some elected officials in Lansing, Michigan.
Oh,
some of your colleagues in the legislature there. And I met the Senate Democratic leader, Jim Ananich. He happens to represent Flint. And I spoke with him about the Flint water crisis. If there was a word stronger than crisis, I'd use it, but I can't think of one right now. And I give you this anecdote. Allegedly, a safe level of lead, safe, you'll disabuse me in a moment, 5 parts per billion. There were homes in the Flint area that were at 13,000 parts per billion. Not 13, 13,000.
How is that possible? How is that possible? And you're right, there is no safe amount of lead. That has been proven over and over again. But even if the 5 parts per billion was acceptable, how do you get to 13,000? That's shocking. If there was a better word, we'd use
shocking.
that.
And so what has the Flint water crisis, how has it informed you as you work in Sacramento and look at the potential for similar water crises? At this stage, we're not aware of any Flint-like disasters in California. But look, there go the grace of God.
Right.
I mean, anything could happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you first, Brad, for having me
Please.
today. And, you know, water was an issue for me before Flint, Michigan became known and kind of highlighted it. We do know here in California that we do still have some lead pipes. They haven't been manufactured in a number of decades, but there still are lead pipes that have not been replaced. So you can have perfectly good, clean drinking water going through those pipes, picking up trace amounts or even more than trace amounts of lead.
And you taught me, I've learned, that in 1986, the use of lead pipes were banned, but it wasn't until 2010 that plumbing parts and water fixtures sold in California had to be lead-free. That's yesterday.
Yes, it
That's
is yesterday.
And what I learned also through the Flint situation is the problem there is it was the dislodging of lead as a result of using a different water source and not treating that water properly. Well, here we are in a drought.
Yes.
We are looking for different water sources, trying to expand our portfolio. And so when I think about the fact that different water could flow through pipes in, I don't know, Pomona, that's part of your district?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That could be a recipe for a Flint-type situation.
Yes. No, you're exactly right. And that's why I was so happy to introduce this bill. So that
1398, by the way.
1398, thank you very much. Because we can't take that chance. And because we are looking for new water sources, and we might be putting something through that lead pipe that would dislodge something, we just need to replace these pipes. And that's what this bill would do. This bill would require that local water agencies do an inventory of lead pipes that are still being used, and they would provide that inventory or list, if you will, to the water board.
But how do we do an inventory? This is California. There are a lot of pipes under the ground.
The water company should know.
They already
know. This should not be difficult or exhaustive for them. And then what the water board will do, what they need to report to the water board is a time frame for when they will replace those, because we can't just let the status quo be there and wait and hope nothing happens.
Right. Now, in Michigan, they are replacing those pipes. It's taking longer than expected, and you don't want to be hasty.
Right.
If we do find there is dangerous levels of lead, is this not a public emergency? I mean, look, if you and I ingested lead, it wouldn't be a good thing.
Right.
But if our kids who are under 5 ingest lead, their lives are irreparably harmed forever.
Forever. There's no reversing the effects. Yeah, I do think it's close to a public emergency. It's not, if we can get them the pipes replaced in a timely manner, but as they're experiencing delays, I understand how that works. It's
yes, you do.
Unfortunate, but it does happen. But I think we just have to take it seriously. What we always hear is, well, it's going to cost a lot of money. We know that. But how much value do we put on a person's health or their life?
Well, and if you're really going to talk about a financial calculation, think about the cost to take care of that 4-year-old for the rest of
their life. That's right.
When they have mental delays,
that's exactly
they can't work for themselves. I mean, that's the argument that could be made.
Yes, that's exactly right.
But let's take the flip side, because it is a financial investment. Let's say a certain area in, I don't know, Chino or Pomona in your district does need significant replacement. from where would that money derive? Is it the ratepayers? Is it the public, the government? Who pays?
The bill does not define where it comes from, but I would like to think that it would be from a number of sources. That we should. This is everyone's issue, so we should find a way that we can all work together, and maybe everybody pays a little, so no one has to pay a lot.
So what are the water companies saying, both public and private?
No problem so far.
Oh, really?
We haven't heard any
Okay.
opposition from them.
Bill's
I think
moving?
they kind of get it. Bill's moving. It's passed off the Senate floor, and it's in the Assembly now.
Okay.
So I think it's kind of hard to argue when we know that lead, there are no safe levels. It's kind of hard to argue that we shouldn't be doing something.
And especially given what's happening in Michigan and how that
Right.
story has gone national.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I've seen the magazine covers, I've seen the pictures, I've spoken with a state senator, and it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
What's also heartbreaking is what's happened in other areas in the Southern California area, not necessarily in your district, but let's talk, for example, about the Exide battery plant or the Porter Ranch situation, we'll call it. What those two incidents brought up is the concept of environmental justice.
That's right.
You know, you saw what happened in Porter Ranch, a more well-heeled area, arguably. The minute something went wrong there,
They were on it.
they were on it.
That's right.
Whereas
That's
with
right.
Exide, arguably, it took a little more time because Exide's in Vernon, an area not as well heeled.
Right.
So that got you thinking.
Yep, sure
and
did.
talk to me about what you're thinking in terms of environmental justice.
Absolutely. So early on when I was elected year before last,
Right.
I went on what's commonly, lovingly referred to as the toxic tour in my district from an environmental group. And I am always in their debt for taking me on that tour because sometimes you just don't know.
And let's talk about your district, the Inland Empire,
Mm-hmm.
which is a burgeoning, growing area.
Yes.
You have a lot of land.
A lot of land.
And who knows what was on that land 50 years ago.
That's right.
Gas stations, there's still tanks under.
Right.
What'd you learn?
Part of our issue is it's here right now. We don't even have to worry about looking what used to be here and what might be in the ground.
Oh.
We have issues right here, right now to deal with. We started in Pomona, and we're building and operating plants that do maybe recycling of wood chips, wood products, and it's right next to an elementary school. So there's toxic air and things that children are breathing that they shouldn't be breathing. And as we worked our way through the district, there are various, we don't have enough time to go through
No,
all of them,
fair enough, yeah.
various issues, but it's very interesting. They were all built in poor neighborhoods. So it just makes you feel, it made me feel that, oh, if you're poor, then you don't matter.
And that's the question when we look at matters of environmental justice. It's kind of a
Yes.
new term, at least to me.
Yes, it
it's
is.
one we haven't seen. So your bill, SB 1000, is looking for environmental justice questions, or at least the issue of healthy communities to be
Right.
part of the consideration
Yes.
as we go through planning, the general plan.
The general plan.
Yeah, explain
exactly.
that, please.
So what this bill would require is that when a city, it comes time for them to update their general plan, they don't have to go back and do anything else.
Fair.
This bill would not require them to start immediately, that they look at environmental justice, making sure they're not building something that's going to has toxic fumes next to a school, next to a neighborhood. As you drive through the Inland Empire, you'll see that there are many, many warehouses which bring in lots of traffic, lots of pollution, and sometimes they choose to build those right next to a school or right next to a housing development, and there's lots of other land around that they could have picked. So this is just about thinking, and we're not trying to stifle business in any way. Let's just be smart about the way we do it. People can live and be healthy. Business can thrive. Sometimes they don't need to be right next to each other. Many times not.
Right, how's the bill doing?
Good. So far,
Right.
it's off the
moving.
Senate floor, and it's on its way to the Assembly as well.
And do you have a sense as to whether local governments are appreciative of your efforts, or do they see this as somewhat of an intrusion?
Yeah, they don't love it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I agree too. And I think, what I have said is, and we're working with the stakeholders to try and remove any opposition
see.
to the bill, and we're actually very close to that.
good.
Because you know what? I'm not trying to make it harder for them. I'm just trying to say to these cities and the businesses, let's be smart about what we do.
Her name is Connie Leyva. She is a member of the California State Senate. We're in Sacramento today. I'm Brad Pomerance, Local Edition.